What are some of the ways the biggest lottery winners spend their money? Let's dig in. Number 4. Colin Weir. Despite winning over $250 million in one of the biggest payouts in European lottery history, Colin Weir managed to spend almost all of it before he passed away. It takes a lot of doing to spend that much money in less than a decade, but it was work that Colin was ready to do. Colin won the jackpot in 2011, and at the time it was the largest amount handed out by the European Lottery Commission. After the win, Colin, who was at the time married to his wife Christine, almost immediately purchased a huge $5.75 million mansion. They then spent millions renovating the home. In 2018, the couple divorced, and Christine left with half of the lottery winnings, which left Colin with only $80 million, like some sort of pauper. One would expect Colin to be able to live on this money and not almost exhaust it in just a year, but Colin exhausted almost all of it in just a year. In the last years of his life, Colin made a series of investments and purchases that almost removed him from millionaire status. First, he bought cars, some of which include a Jaguar F-Pace SUV and a vintage Bentley Arnage. But that wasn't all. Before the divorce, Colin had made several large investments in ventures that didn't exactly provide great returns. For one, he invested heavily in the failed SNP independence referendum campaign. He also purchased several thoroughbred horses for thousands of dollars and set up a charity as well. He also bought a 55% share in a Glasgow soccer team. Eventually, Colin handed over the ownership of the team to the fans, but that was after he had used his winnings to wipe out the debt of the club. All in all, Colin was spending an average of $131,000 per week on luxury items. By the time Colin died from acute kidney injury and sepsis in 2019, he had whittled down his original winnings to roughly $30 million. But all his spending wasn't for naught. After his passing, the Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon had glowing words to say about his contribution to the cause of Scottish independence. Number 3. Adrian Bayford. Adrian Bayford and his ex-wife Gillian believed that all their prayers had been answered when they won £148 million from the Euromillions lottery. Then the couple divorced barely 2 years later. After the divorce, Adrian decided to find another life partner, and his eyes settled on Samantha Burbridge. Samantha was the head groomer of a horse stable, and Adrian was completely smitten with her, despite her spending a massive amount of time around horses. We don't know what it is about her. Maybe it was the smell of hay or the obsession with brushing things. We're not sure, but there was something, and Adrian liked it. It was probably their mutually deep connections. Within 2 weeks, Adrian had flown her to Maldives and proposed. Burbridge surprisingly accepted the millionaire's proposal, and everything looked like it was going to be a love story for the age. Well, we can take that story out of the romance section and refile it in the stories with a predictable twist section, right next to the Sixth Sense. Anyway, when Samantha returned to Adrian's mansion in England, she discovered how lonely she was. She had access to all the money she could ever want, but somehow couldn't figure out how to use it to buy happiness. Like that's hard or something. Adrian also showered her with incredible gifts. He bought her around 30 horses and even 2 engagement rings. Samantha had misplaced the first ring, and Adrian immediately had it replaced with a smaller one because Adrian isn't great at reading things like obvious signs. He also bought a £2 million equestrian center in Swaffham, Norfolk, paid the stable staff Samantha hired, and also gave her a monthly allowance. You'd think simply buying someone's affection would be enough to replace real emotions and lead to a long, stable marriage. Despite spending generously on his fiancée, Adrian had no love for horses. This meant that Samantha was quite lonely and often even had to go to horse shows by herself. And the large mansion that Adrian lived in, well, it was just too big for her. And to make matters worse, Adrian wasn't home that much since he traveled often to see his children, who now lived with his ex-wife in Scotland. Good dads can be so annoying. In the end, Samantha realized what everyone hearing this story instantly knew. She married Adrian for the money, but that would never be enough. Adrian spent loads on her, but she did not love him. So she left, and she made sure she took her horses and a Mercedes he had bought for her. Because of course she did. After leaving Adrian, Samantha went off to start a new relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Alan Sucking, a divorced father of 4. She must have thought Alan was super hot or more tolerable or something, because unlike Adrian, who has millions of pounds in the bank, Alan has exactly 0. According to his friends, Alan has no money and lives with his mother. Oof. However, Adrian probably wasn't too broken up about his loss of Samantha. Samantha, as he never originally intended to propose to Samantha. Before Adrian even met Samantha, he had met Marta Jaros, a woman who worked as a bouncer at a pub, but like a nice pub, where most of the TVs were. Adrian told her about his lottery win, then he hired her as a bodyguard, personal assistant, and chauffeur. Lex Luthor style, right? That might have been a bit of a reach, Adrian. You had to know that. According to Marta, Adrian had always wanted to have a romantic relationship with her, but she refused. In fact, while away in the Maldives, trying to propose to Samantha, Adrian was still trying to convince Marta to marry him, but Marta didn't care. Seriously. 3 women don't care how much money this guy has. They don't even want to pretend to like him. Days after Adrian got engaged, he decided that she was no longer in need of a bodyguard, limo driver, assistant, and fired her. Samantha, the woman Adrian was on the trip with, either didn't know or didn't care that she was the second pick. We have a feeling she didn't care since she made sure she took amazing pictures of herself on the trip, and none of them featured her new fiance. Unfortunately for Adrian, his bad luck with women didn't just start and end with Samantha or Marta. He was also reportedly dumped by former Frankie and Benny's waitress, Lisa Kemp. His bad luck didn't even just end in romantic relationships. He's also fallen out with friends. Even his old pub isn't a source of comfort anymore. He's fallen out with the staff of the establishment and now hardly steps a foot in. But that doesn't mean our good old lottery winner is done spending his money. In fact, he recently purchased 2 mansions in Scotland. However, those mansions were likely for him to be able to live closer to his ex-wife and their children. They're also probably haunted. That's just our guess, but look at those are haunted, like The Shining. Adrian's also been making business decisions too, such as the decision to rent out a part of his estate for Airbnb. Problem though is that the Airbnb doesn't even earn enough money to even cover the interest payments from Adrian's lottery win. So it's kind of pointless, but perhaps that's the sort of thing you do when you have millions of dollars and still get dumped. Number 2, Peter Congdon. On the day Peter Congdon won over £13 million through the lottery, he believed he'd won £25, but he won more. That day, 3 separate people told him he would be lucky, and he believed that this meant he would win something. He didn't know it was going to be the jackpot. It wasn't until the numbers were announced that he realized that he hadn't won £25, but £13.5 million. Once it was confirmed that he had won the jackpot, he did the most British thing ever. He made himself a cup of tea. Because why not? It's not like he was allowed to display any sort of emotion. Now that Peter has won the lottery, his life has changed considerably for the better, which is good to hear. For one, Peter has spent over £500,000 on cars for himself and family members. Some of the cars he bought included BMWs, Land Rovers, a Porsche, and a Bentley. Nowadays, he loans the vehicle out to local kids who want to use it for prom because he's a good dude. He has also paid off the mortgage of his 3 children. Sadly, Peter's late wife wasn't able to enjoy the wealth he came into. To make up for that, he's decided to donate quite generously to the Merlin MS Center, where his wife was cared for before she passed on. Peter also asked the people who borrow his vehicles to donate to the center as payment. He also purchased a hydrotherapy pool for the center that cost over $1 million. It'll be of great use to the people that suffer from conditions such as Parkinson's disease. Because seriously, he sounds like a good dude. Now that Peter's a millionaire, the life of his family has changed a lot. His children now drive Range Rovers, which is a big change from the cars they had before, because some of them were working at McDonald's before their dad won the lottery. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to check out our past release to learn the exact details on why you actually would not want to win the lottery. Number 1, Edwin Castro. Edwin Castro won over $2 billion through the Powerball lottery, making him the winner with the highest prize in the lottery's history. Once the winning numbers were declared, it was announced that only one winning ticket had been sold, and that winner was Castro. Edwin had the chance to either take a lump sum or payments, and he wisely went for the lump sum. The lump sum prize was around $900 million, but that wasn't what Castro would eventually walk away with. He also had to pay federal taxes, and that shaved off around a third of the money. California, shockingly, doesn't charge taxes on lottery winnings like they do on literally everything else, so he didn't have to pay state taxes on his winning. This left Castro with $627.6 million as his total win, which sounds really weird when you think about how he won over $2 billion. It's not that he didn't walk away with generational wealth, but the government who gave it out took almost 75% of it back. How does that work? Our man Edwin didn't waste any time at all spending his money. Just 120 days after his win, he purchased a $25 million 13,000 square foot mansion with 5 rooms and bathrooms. A few days after that, he purchased another mansion. Like the first house, this one also has 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. The home was built in 1953 and includes a manicured courtyard and a private oasis at the center. He also purchased a $250,000 vintage Porsche vehicle. Unlike many other lottery winners, Edwin has wisely remained quiet. Why advertise that you just won millions? He has never given an interview, and the only thing we know about him is the statement he sent over to the Lottery Commission after he was announced as a winner. In the statement, he said that the real winner of the lottery was the California public school system, which the lottery funds. We know he probably meant it, but it sounds fake, doesn't it? Like, who needs $650 million when you're already rich in your heart? Come on. However, Edwin's lottery prize isn't without some controversy. A lawsuit has been filed by someone named Jose Rivera, claiming that the lottery win is rightfully his, not Edwin. No one really knows the merit of the case yet, but for the time being, Edwin Castro remains the beneficiary of the lottery as of the release of this video. And he's spending like it. Here are a few of the worst things that happen with winning the lottery. Number 7. Willie Seely. When wild Willie Seely and his wife Donna won a share of a $450 million jackpot, they thought that they could finally slow down and live life the way they always wanted to. Willie dreamed of spending his days hunting, fishing, and watching NASCAR without having to worry about how he'll pay his bills. With a boatload of cash on the way, it seemed like he and his wife could do just that. But reality rarely meets our expectations, and the Seelys' new life was fraught with more stress and complications than they bargained for. First off, the money was not as overwhelming as the humongous jackpot implied. The $450 million pot was first divided between 3 winners. Then, Willie and 15 of his co-workers, who had all bought tickets in a workplace pool, split their share. Willie and his wife walked away with $4 million after taxes. While all of us would love to deposit $4 million into our accounts, it wasn't the mind-blowing fortune they thought they'd won. Still, the Seelys were able to leave their jobs, buy themselves a couple of new cars, and fix up their house, which had taken a beating during Hurricane Sandy. So, what was the issue? Well, it seems with all the media attention that came with winning the lottery, there came an endless stream of people looking to get their hands on the Seelys' money. Their home phone rings non-stop as long-lost family members and scammers line up to take their shot at a piece of the winnings. Willie has even brandished his shotgun at unwanted visitors on their property on multiple occasions. While the Seelys are thankful for the money they received and the freedom it granted them, they could certainly do without all the strings attached to that much cash. Number 6. The Griffiths. In 2005, Laura and Roger Griffiths won the lottery for £1.8 million. Their lives were forever changed, but not in the way they hoped or expected. While the piles of extra cash allowed them to splurge on luxuries, their financial situation grew increasingly more complicated before it completely bottomed out with the economic recession of the late 2000s. That certainly wasn't a concern of theirs to begin with, though. They bought themselves a gorgeous stone mansion in Yorkshire, England, where they live with their 2 young daughters. Parked outside was Roger's slick Porsche convertible, which sat next to his wife's Lexus 4x4. Laura used £500,000 to start her own beauty salon. On the other hand, Roger quit his steady job to be a stay-at-home dad and watch over the family's finances. When he wasn't doing the laundry or investing the winnings, he was practicing with his old rock band, which got back together after Roger bought them all expensive new equipment. But instead of becoming the rock star he always dreamed of, Roger soon found himself separated from his wife, forced to move back in with his elderly parents, and with only £7 to his name. What in the world went wrong? Turns out, Roger had been making some questionable investments with the lotto money that had left over after all their lavish spending. He squandered the winnings, and the tanking economy made things even worse. After Laura found emails suggesting Roger was cheating on her, the end of the Griffiths fairy tale life had officially arrived. Roger moved out and is no longer in contact with his wife and children as he tries to salvage what little he has left. Laura sold their dream home and her salon, where she still works to try and pay the bills and support her daughters. What started as an unbelievable stroke of good fortune ended up destroying an innocent family's life, leaving them worse off than they were before. Number 5. Jeffrey Dampier. When you hear about lottery wins gone bad, it's usually the case that reckless spending got the better of the lucky winners. But for Jeff Dampier, his tragic story is an example of what happens when greed overtakes the people around the winner, and their desire to get a slice of that cash pie overrides all else. Jeff and his ex-wife won $20 million from the Illinois lottery back in 1996. When the couple got divorced, they split the winnings 50-50, and Jeff moved down to Tampa, Florida with his second wife, Crystal Jackson. Jeff used a good chunk of the money that remained to open a popcorn company called Cassie's Gourmet Popcorn, which he named after his daughter. But he also wasn't shy about sharing his wealth with those around him. He often treated his wife's family to generous gifts and even financially supported her 2 sisters, Victoria and Terry. How did they repay his generosity? They took his life. Victoria Jackson and her boyfriend Nathaniel came up with a nefarious plot to get their hands on Jeff's winnings. They asked him to help out with car troubles at their apartment. When he got there, Nathaniel tied him up and demanded he fork over all his money. In the end, Victoria shot her brother-in-law. Rather than get a piece of the hefty jackpot, Victoria and Nathaniel both got hefty prison sentences. Multiple life sentences, to be exact. Jeff Dampier's story is a reminder that those around us, even family members, don't always have the best intentions, especially when there's that much cash at stake. Number 4. Susan Mullins. Winning the lottery is hard enough. Spending your winnings wisely is apparently even harder. It also doesn't help when greedy collection agencies take you to court for all you're worth. Take Virginia lottery winner Suzanne Mullins, for example. Suzanne won $4.2 million in 1993 after buying a ticket on a whim at a convenience store. She vowed to be smart about the exact cash she was awarded and claimed she would avoid blowing through the money too quickly like so many other lottery winners do. The pot was split 3 ways between Suzanne, her husband, and her daughter, so the annual payment she'd receive was roughly $47,000 once a year for 20 years. Suzanne essentially had an entire year's salary coming in the mail every year. That would prove pretty helpful to any family trying to pay through their monthly bills, wouldn't you say? Well, in the end, Suzanne was not nearly as wise with her spending as she originally promised. 5 years later, money had gotten so tight for her after exorbitant medical bills related to her sick son-in-law. She took out a loan from the People's Lottery Foundation, which lends financial aid to lottery winners who need more cash than their annual payments allow. The foundation lent Suzanne $200,000. The situation grew more complicated when the lottery changed its rules about lump sums in 2000. Now, winners could claim all their money at once instead of receiving yearly payments. Suzanne elected to do just that, thinking she could pay back her loan and carry on with her life. The People's Lottery Foundation had a different opinion, claiming she violated the terms of their agreement. Since they were relying on the interest tied to her loan to make money, Suzanne paying it back in bulk cut into their bottom line. They took the lottery winner to court and gouged her for an additional $150,000 in penalties. Suzanne, now drained of all her winnings, was now $150,000 in debt just a decade after becoming an overnight millionaire. Number 3. Denise Rossi. After winning the lottery, things like smart investments and trips to Las Vegas moved to the top of the winners' to-do lists. Denise Rossi, on the other hand, decided to get a divorce. Just 11 days after winning $1.3 million from the California lottery, Denise abruptly ended her marriage of 25 years. The catch? She didn't tell her husband Thomas that she had won the lottery. She kept that rather important detail completely hidden during the legal proceedings. 2 years later, Thomas caught wind of his ex-wife's good fortune. He got a letter in the mail from a company offering to pay lump sums to lottery winners. There was just one problem. He didn't win the lottery, or so he thought. Within days, he had uncovered his ex-wife's plot to hide the money she'd won while they were still married, and he took her to court to get his rightful share of the cash. Denise's greed and deception ended up costing her every penny she won from that lottery ticket. The judge, appalled by her behavior, ordered her to pay her ex-husband $60,000 a year for the next 20 years. Per California marriage laws, lottery winnings are considered communal funds between spouses. Thomas was entitled to half the money because she bought and cashed the ticket before they were legally separated. Her decision to keep her lottery winnings a secret from her husband of 25 years, ironically, ended up ensuring he'd receive it all. Ouch. Number 2. Amanda Clayton. You may have heard that winning the lottery should not change the way you spend your money, or else the winnings will run out rather quickly. It's why you often see winners choose to keep their jobs even with the influx of cash. Michigan lottery winner Amanda Clayton took this advice to the extreme. After receiving more than $700,000 from a winning lottery ticket, Clayton continued applying for and receiving food stamps and unemployment benefits. While still technically unemployed, the programs she was mooching off of are designed to help people who genuinely need the money. She obviously did not. She was charged with food stamp fraud and put on temporary probation, but the story only gets crazier from there. Clayton had been engaged in a longtime feud with 2 of her neighbors, Candace Combs and Victor Bartolo. The battle apparently got so serious that Combs accused Clayton of hiring 3 hitmen to go after her and Mr. Bartolo with the money she won. While the lottery winner denied the accusation, 2 men were charged with assault concerning the attack on her neighbors. Clayton herself wasn't charged, but she did walk away with a few scrapes and bruises. The feuding neighbors were the Hatfields and McCoys of Lincoln Park, Michigan, but their dispute was never settled. Clayton was found dead just a year after their physical altercation. Details regarding her death are hard to come by, but it's been said that Amanda's lottery winnings had dwindled before she died. Number 1. Ken Proxmire. All the way back in 1977, Ken Proxmire won a $1 million jackpot, which comes out to about $4.5 million in today's money. By the start of 1981, Ken had filed for bankruptcy. How did he burn through all that cash so fast? Ken's story tells of unwise spending going completely unchecked. Ken was set up to receive $50,000 a year for 14 years. To him, that meant he could totally change his lifestyle to fit his newfound wealth. He bought a new car, some fancy clothes, and moved his family from Detroit all the way out to California so he could live like the high roller he believed himself to be. His dream was to own a bowling alley, but that dream proved too expensive with even his lottery winnings. He had to compromise, settling on a pool hall instead. He opened the doors on his pool hall in December of 1977 and even launched 3 additional outlet stores to sell pool tables. However, his cross-country move, lavish spending, and business boom proved too much too fast. Sales took a nosedive in the years that followed, and Ken found himself in the hole for business loans and credit card debt that he could not afford to pay. Apparently, pool tables were not flying off the shelves like they used to. The mounting financial pressure came to a head in 1981 when Ken officially filed for bankruptcy. He said he learned many valuable lessons from his mistake-filled past and even had plans to write a book, though it's unclear whether that ever materialized. The moral of Ken's story? It's easier than you think to blow through $1 million if you're not careful. Just take it from Ken himself, who, when asked about his advice to future lottery winners, said, "Crawl into a hole and pull the top in." Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather do if you ever won a huge lottery. Take the lump sum or take the annuity.